Hey, it's CryptoBo, and today I'm reviewing the Keystone Pro, as well as the Keystone Tablet and Keystone Tablet Pro, which is like the Keystone Tablet, but less amateur. Now, Keystone were nice enough to send me over all of this just to make a review for them, and honestly, I was not a huge fan going in, or at least not of the concept, and maybe that's because I'd previously reviewed the EliPal, which is similar to the Keystone Pro, but way shittier. TLDR, I have a few criticisms, but I actually really like this wallet. If at any point during the video you want to get your hands on one, then click the link in the description, head over to the store, and pick one up for yourself. I'm going to talk about its security, I'm going to talk about its value, and I'm going to talk about its integrations, then I'm going to finish off with a couple of my criticisms. As far as security is concerned, one of the things that makes this wallet stand out as far as security is concerned is it may be the only open source secure element chip on the market. Trezor, for instance, is open source, but they don't use a secure element. Instead, they use a general purpose microcontroller, which comes with its own costs, whereas this is an EAL5 plus secure element with open source firmware, which means as far as verifiability is concerned, that's really good. As far as auditability is concerned, that's also really good. And what's interesting about this is, as opposed to a Trezor or a Ledger, it doesn't connect directly to your laptop or your phone. Instead, it uses partial key signing and QR codes to verify transactions as they're happening, which means that you can do DeFi transactions, partially sign them, scan a QR code using the camera on the device itself, and then produce a QR code, which you then scan with your phone app in order to verify and authorize transactions. Now, you can go and look at my EliPal review if you're really interested as to why air gapping is not maybe as secure as it's built up to be, but it does limit the amount of information that flows between the internet and your device. As I mentioned in my Bitbox review, one of the most important things about a hardware wallet is that the team is engaged and that they're actively trying to break their own device. And in that sense, the Keystone team is actively trying to break theirs and other devices in order to up the security of the entire ecosystem. They're a really good team. I don't know if I would say that they're more qualified than some of their competitors, but there's certainly some smart guys that can be probably trusted. There's multiple different places where you can put in passwords, and there's even a thumbprint scanner on the back for an extra layer of security, which checks all the boxes as far as access control is concerned, which when you're trying to verify that you are a person or that you have control or access to your funds, you typically want three things. One, something you know, which would be the passwords that you can put on the device, something you have, which is the device itself, and then something you are, which is something like this biometric thumbprint scanner. One of the only flaws is that the firmware update can only happen through micro SD card, which means that there's some level of communication between what is definitely an unsecure device in your laptop or your phone and the hardware wallet itself, but it's a comparatively minor concern. As far as value is concerned, the Keystone Pro clocks in at about $170, which is a fair amount of money, especially when you compare it to something like the Trezor Model 1, which is only about $70. I personally think it's worth it if for no other reason than for one security feature that I didn't mention earlier, and that is when you're updating your firmware and when you're popping in your micro SD card, one of the positives is that you can download the source code of smart contracts so that they're interpreted on your wallet before you approve them. Now, it may not make a lot of sense why that's important, but you can look, for instance, at my video that I did on what happened with the BadgerDAO hack, where hackers were able to gain access to the front end of a smart contract. They didn't compromise the smart contract itself, but instead escalated their privileges within the MetaMask interface in order to get users to approve transactions to a smart contract that was not the BadgerDAO smart contract. That then allowed the attackers to drain their funds. If, however, those users had been using a Keystone Pro, they would have been able to download the BadgerDAO source code, interpret their transactions, and once they saw that it was an unencrypted transaction, they would know that they weren't interacting with the smart contract they thought they were. It's just a little extra layer of security, especially if you're engaged in DeFi. That's not something, for instance, that you'll be able to do with a Trezor Model 1. And it's something you might be able to do with a Trezor Model T, but I don't believe they've introduced that functionality yet. One of the other cool security features is what they call the self-destruct mechanism. Now, they understand that the body itself is probably impenetrable except by cutting, which would destroy the board itself. So the only way to get in would be to heat the edges of the screen and pull the screen off. But there's an electronic relay sitting between the board and the screen that, if disconnected, would immediately erase everything on the board itself. A lot of thought has been put into the security design, which is why this is quickly becoming, I think, my favorite hardware wallet. Keystone supports all the currencies that you're sort of used to. Again, as is basically industry standard, they don't support Monero. So still, Trezor Model T or the Ledger Nano X are going to be your only options if you actually want to trade in Monero. I don't know how many people actually do, but I care about it, and so I feel like I should mention it. As far as Web3 integrations are concerned, they're fully integrated with MetaMask, and even before they were integrated with MetaMask, they had their own MetaMask fork, which you could then use to sign transactions on the decentralized web. I know I said I would have criticisms earlier, but I honestly don't really. The only criticism I have is that they require the SD card to update the firmware, but they don't include it. I just paid $170 for a hardware wallet. You're not going to give me a micro SD card? Ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Good old normie. Oh, rest in peace. Overall, I really like the Keystone wallet, as well as the 2 metal seed backups that they're selling as well. All of it's a little bit pricier than some of the other comparable hardware wallets, and all those other wallets are fine. I just don't think they've been engineered in quite as secure a way, especially with an eye towards decentralized finance and interacting with DAOs, which are the sort of things that I'm getting involved in right now. So would I recommend it? Absolutely. 100% top of my tier list. So if you want to pick one up, click the link in the description, head over to the store, and buy one for yourself. Anyway, click here if you want to see some of the other hardware wallets I recommend, and click here if you want a quick primer on how to DeFi.